Hello, South Africa, and welcome. My name is Kamogelo Dipoko, your host of the inaugural Department of Public Service and Administration podcast, also known as the DPSA Batupele podcast channel. On this first episode, we start with a masterclass in management practices, OFA, and productivity management. For those in the know, OFA stands for Organizing Framework for Occupations. The Masterclass in Management Practices, OFA, and Productivity provides guidance on productivity, management, efficiency, and optimizing available resources within the public sector. Without further ado, let's go straight to DPSA Deputy Director Anton Foury's presentation on the subject matter.
Good morning, colleagues and gents and colleagues. As I said, I'm Anton Foury. I'm responsible for the organizational functionality assessment and its role in the public service. What I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk quickly for you guys on the directive, the definition, but an overview, and I'm going to let you what are the critical success factors in how to manage this program and things that. And once we've done that, I'm going to introduce Ms. Saul from Northern Cape Social Development and Mr. Reddy and Mr. Mahabir from KZN Education, where in both departments, they were very successful in implementing this OFA program. And I think we can learn from what they have done in terms of the offer. If you look at the offer, what is the offer? If I had to explain the offer to someone in simple terms, it offers about a systemic analysis of organizational functionality that it would be measured against the institutionalized systems, structures, policies, and processes, how you use your resources and how you deploy your resources, and what is your capacity to deliver on your mandates. So on the screen we have there is basically the overview. The offer covers 5 factors. What we do in the offer with performance. Now those 5 black ovals are supported by 42 assessment factors and a number of indicators. But the way we run this whole program, the important part of the management program is to manage it's a project management process. So in terms of project management approach, in our capacity building, we focus on these things. We tell the guys, you have to set up a project plan, a project governance structure, a project, in terms of your project, your work stream approach, you'll have a project coordinator, a number of work streams, and then there's a process you have to go through by using the indicators to gather information and to do a data analysis. From that, you will develop a report, and then there's levels for quality assurance in this process built in. And then the end result of this is an offer report and an implementation plan that will focus on how do you improve your service delivery in your department. So you will always ask me, what are the challenges when conducting an offer? And this is the things that project manager has to manage in the offer. And our guests today were very good at managing these challenges in their departments. That's why they were so successful in conducting the offer. So first thing you need to do is develop a sustainable project plan. This is the most important part. The project plan gives you your starting times, who needs to do what. And from DPSA side, we have a draft plan that we provide to departments to develop their own project plans. Second important challenge you need to manage in your department is to prioritize resources to conduct the offer, because it takes some time and you need to prioritize resources to get to manage this process. Important part, because the offer is a multi-skilled assessment, it covers the whole of the department from A to Z. So you need a multi-skilled assessment team from various parts of the department. Fourthly, this commitment from management is critically important, that they support your process throughout. And then after that, an important part is you base your findings or must be based on evidence-informed analysis, must be evidence-based. We try to remove all subjective personal views from this process and then work from an evidence-based process.
An insightful take from Mr. Anton Foury. Next up is Mr. Sunil Mahavir from KZN Department of Education.
Colleagues, once again, a very good morning to all present. My name is Sunil Mahabir, and I work within the Department of Education in KZN. I want to provide you with an indication of exactly what transpired within our department. I'm going to share with you our perspective in terms of one department in one province. And it's important for us to understand the context within which we are operating. Our department has approximately 6,000 schools, which are broken up into 12 districts, and we have a workforce in excess of 100,000 employees. And that is the context within which we attempted to give effect to OFA during the course of the pilot process. Some of you who have an affinity for research might well refer to what I'm going to share with you as an action research case study, because it provides you with an understanding of exactly how we dealt with OFA processes from head office right down to our schooling system. And the reflections that I will share with you are nothing more than reflections based on the experiences that we've had. And we don't want to suggest even momentarily that our perspective is going to include a prescriptive list of do's and don'ts. All that we can share with you are some of the good practices, some of the things that worked and why they worked. And you can then look at ways in which you could possibly emulate those, but always taking into account contextual factors. It's important, colleagues, for us to note that right at the outset of the process, there were two fundamental constructs or anchors around which we pegged OFA. The first was the notion of our government, our state being a developmental one. And the second was that OFA need to be linked very clearly to a theory of change. And I'm going to amplify on both of these shortly. The issue of a developmental state is fundamentally in relation to the work that we do within our department. And it's important for you to create a nexus between the work that you are doing, your core business, your vision, your mantra, and the fundamental business, which is essentially the rationale for the existence of your department or organizational entity, and how that relates to OFA processes. Within the context of an education department like ours, we are focusing primarily on the issue of quality public education, which we disaggregated into classroom practices, which we wanted to enhance, and we also wanted to improve at a systemic level the issue of school functionality. So it was very important for us to look at OFA as a process which we would locate within the epicenter of what we do as an education department. It's also axiomatic, but something which I need to mention, that OFA shouldn't be seen as a mere technocratic exercise. It's not just about ticking of boxes or compliance per se. Rather, OFA is an organic and interrogative and inquisitorial process. And it's a process which does have the potential to engender a tremendous amount of benefit, both for the department at a broad organizational level, but also in terms of the individual growth, professional development of the officials who were participating in this process. With regard to the second anchor that I mentioned already, i.e. the theory of change, and I think the Goose video provided us with a very powerful illustration of how the theory of change can be utilized within an organization as large and complex as ours is. And fundamental to the notion of the theory of change was the issue of dialectical relationships, the interplay between head office and districts, districts and head office, schools and districts, schools and communities, and equally importantly, to try to address the very obdurate challenge that we've always issue of silo mentality. OFA gave us the wonderful opportunity to engage with colleagues from other business units outside of our chief directorate, outside of our branches. And for many of us, it was the first time that there was the kind of spontaneous collective reflection without there being some kind of external entity which was compelling us to attend to the issues of administration and the analysis and reflection of the variance between what we purported to do on paper in reality, in relation to the grim realities that we frequently encountered, especially in light of budget cuts that were manifesting themselves at all levels within the education system in KZN. OFA also provided the department and those who participated in the pilot project with a great chance to get to know each other as individuals, to understand the inherent processes in relation to the business of other entities which were outside of head office, and we forged wonderful partnerships, friendships, which transcended the traditional divide of us merely interacting with each other as officials, as directors, DDGs, etc. So in many ways, it was ushering a kind of egalitarian philosophical inflection or ethos within the bureaucracy, and it's something which we're most grateful for. Folks, I want to very quickly go through the issue of the success factors, and I want to start off by encapsulating what Rama shared with us in terms of the GEIS video. Fundamental in terms of the GEIS video is the issue of partnerships and teamwork ruling the day. This is based on the premise that people who share a common direction and sense of community can get where they want quicker and easier because they're traveling on the trust of each other.
Welcome back to part 1 of a masterclass in management practices, OFA, and productivity management. Let's get into the meat of Godfrey Zwane Monique's class.
Good morning, colleagues. To shoot straight into the presentation, slide 2 just gives you an overview of our presentation in terms of introduction and overview, which Marcel made, your critical success factors, your challenges, and how we manage such challenges, and then just some concluding remarks. In terms of our overview, is that one, OFA requires of one to be honest and objective in your assessment and diagnosis, because if you don't do that, you run the risk of not being able to self-correct. So there's a degree of objectivity and honesty that's required to enable you to then be able to then see where are the challenges, what informs those challenges, and how do you address that. But also, we needed to learn that there must be acceptance of what the data reveals, because more often than not, when we do such assessments or self-reflection, we are not always accepting of the outcomes of such. And so that's one of the lessons which we also learned. But also, one needs to acknowledge the gaps and then put in place measures to address those gaps. And what we've done, and we speak to that, you can't come to the end and then now want to fix. As you acknowledge gaps and challenges, you'll have to see how best you address those, not as part of the OFA process, but as part of the general learning process as an institution. And that for us was quite important. In terms of our critical success factors, there was central coordination. Marcel, as the then Chief Director for Corporate Services, led the process, but there was buy-in right across from HOD to the lowest official and so on. We had to engage in weekly sessions with all the relevant working streams. But also what we did in our instance is that although work streams worked independently, but we would then come together in a group and we do peer review, we assess, we critique, we analyze, and we make inputs so as to ensure that whatever the final outcomes is, it's a collective counter because of whatever fear they might be having. But also, there's also some fear amongst our officials and even amongst our managers that the diagnostic review might be used to assess their performance or might be used as a performance assessment instrument in terms of their own individual and program performance. So we needed to deal with those two challenges, because those are the challenges that if you don't deal with them, people would not be honest, they won't be forthright, they won't be objective, and therefore it might compromise the outcomes of your process and the document that you want to put forward at the end of the day. What we did to manage such challenges, one was that, like I spoke to the collective ownership, that executive management and senior management, we sat together with our challenges and we say, but how can we address, how can we improve? Instead of saying, but who did not do what and who did not do this? Because there are sometimes you find there are systemic challenges which we need to address, but also there are operational challenges which we needed to address. And what we found in our instance is that the answers lies within the teams. Our people know the solutions. It's just that sometimes you don't afford them scope and space or a platform for them to vent and to raise such issues. So that we needed to do that, and hence we needed to engage all our officials to ensure that, one, there's uniform understanding in terms of OFA and what OFA seeks to achieve, even prior to you engaging in the actual working streams. Because if there's no uniform understanding amongst all officials within the institution, they might not be willing to participate because out of misunderstandings or out of fear of retribution and so on. So it's absolutely important to ensure that all officials are on board and they understand these processes clearly. They can see what's meant to the outcomes of this and how this will achieve enable an organization to move forward. Also, we use the outcomes to to amend our process and gaps. For argument's sake, in the past, we had our service delivery model residing under OD. When we undertook this process, we realized that, because it resides under OD, there was an HR focus instead of a service delivery element of service focus. And therefore, we need to then migrate that to strategic management, where you lump it together with policy coordination, service delivery improvement, so as to ensure that there's much more coherence and there's much more better coordination and alignment in terms of those functional.
This brings us to the end of part 1 of the Masterclass in Management Practices OFA and Productivity Management, proudly brought to you by the DPSA. Thank you for joining us on this episode. If you found this discussion valuable, don't forget to subscribe to the DPSA Batubili podcast, available on YouTube and coming soon on SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you're also a visual person, subscribe to our DPSA TV channel on YouTube at Department of Public Service and Administration. Be on the lookout for episode 2 coming soon, with part 2 of the Masterclass in Management Practices OFA and Productivity Management. Until then, this is Gamo signing off.